Thank you all for joining us. My name is Cory Brown. I am the Executive Vice President at NEBA Company. We're a manufacturer of industrial coatings. Think things like epoxies and polyurethanes that protect things like steel and concrete. But I'm also a member of the Northland Education and Business Alliance, or NEBA. And hopefully everyone knows what NEBA is. NEBA is a network of education and business organizations in Clay and Platte Counties. And their vision is to promote and provide business-driven educational opportunities for you, who we are convinced are the next generation of business leaders. So welcome. I will be your host during the session, but we do have two other NEBA members working in the background. So we want to say hi to Kim Palomores. Kim is with KC Tech Academy, and she is going to be helping us moderate your questions today. We do want to hear from you. So there's a question and answer section that we're going to ask you to please put your questions into. And also with us today is Amy Washam. Amy is with Northwest Missouri State University. Her office is in Kansas City. And you should all thank Amy because she is the one who has organized this great event and pulled everything together. So thank you to both of you for your efforts in getting this all together. All right, just a few quick notes before we get going. This session is going to be 40 minutes. We do have to stop pretty promptly at 40 minutes after the hour so that we can prepare and reset for the next session. Our industry experts, who I will introduce in a moment, are going to be sharing their professional history and their insights. But we really prefer that this feel more like a conversation. So please, if you're logged in personally, click the question and answer bubble and put in there any comments, any questions, anything that you would like to say, contribute, anything at all, please. And if you're a teacher, please prompt your group to speak up. We want this to be part of a conversation. It's much more effective when we hear directly from you and can address the needs and concerns and questions that you have. All right, when the session ends, you'll be asked to take a really short survey. We value your feedback in that survey. That's what helps us get better at hosting these events in the future. And last but not least, as I mentioned a moment ago, this session is being recorded and it will be available on NEBA's YouTube channel in the near future. So without further ado, we will get started. I'm just going to introduce briefly each one of our panelists and let them give you a little bit about their background. First up, we have Derek Byron. Derek is the Talent Acquisition Specialist at Enterprise Holding. Welcome, Derek, and tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Cory. So I Kansas City native, went to school at Mizzou. So stayed in state and had the aspirations to be the next great radio broadcaster. Always told I had a great face for radio, but unfortunately just didn't have the voice. I went and dabbled a little bit into broadcasting after school, and then just kind of got a niche to go a different direction. That's actually where I found Enterprise. Enterprise Holdings were a transportation industry, everything mobility, so a lot of moving parts. And that really attracted me because what I was lacking in my last career was opportunity. And that is what I found with Enterprise. So I started, and we have a lot of different directions, divisions, departments that we hire for, not just in Kansas City, but the globe. We're in over 100 countries, so definitely a lot of positions out there. But I started in our management trainee role, an entry-level position where most of our folks start, including our current CEO and our past CEOs. But had that about 12 months of training, moved into management roles from there, and was seeking to continue the management route and go more into a kind of a B2B business sales. And just had kind of another itch. And, the company allowed me to kind of take a different direction and recruiting. So that fancy talent acquisitions I'm a recruiter for the Kansas City group. So that's what I've been doing the last 6 years, and I've been really enjoying myself there. So
great story, Derek.
Me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love to hear folks who've had a lot of variety in their roles in life. I think that's the norm. I think no one starts life out as what they end up, and that journey is great. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. Up next, we have Mark Fisher. Mark is an area engineer with the Missouri Department of Transportation. So Mark, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Cory. My name is Mark Fisher. I work for the Missouri Highway Department. I grew up just north of Kansas City, about an hour, Gower, Missouri, East Buchanan High School. Went to Mizzou as well. While at Mizzou, I started out in the agricultural school. I started out as a forestry major, but then I took a surveying class and decided that I really liked the math and I really liked the mathematics involved in surveying. So I switched my degree to civil engineering, and I pursued that until I got my bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Mizzou. Went to work for MoDOT about 28 years ago, and wanted to be outside. So at that time, I worked in the construction division. Worked outside until about 1998. So about 7-8 years, I was working in construction division. MoDOT has about 3 major divisions: construction and materials, maintenance, and then design. Once I got out of construction, I went into more of the design side. I stayed there for about 20 years as a project manager. And just in the last couple of years, I switched to what I'm currently called as an area engineer. So I have involved in a lot of facets of what MoDOT does, just in kind of an overall involvement in some of those aspects of what we do. MoDOT maintains all the roadways in Missouri. We have over 5,000 employees. We employ a lot of engineers. We employ a lot of maintenance folks. Maintenance folks make up more than half of our current staff. I did go ahead and pursue and get my master's degree in engineering management from KU here in Kansas City. So I did go ahead and do that just for more of a self-fulfillment type role. I didn't have to pursue that degree, but thought it was something I wanted to do. And so that's kind of my history and a little bit about MoDOT.
That's a great history, Mark. Thank you very much. I picked up on the part of your story that I thought was really interesting was, just kind of what getting started in a direction, but then paying attention to what you really took interest in. And you mentioned the mathematics part. And so you were, immediately able to kind of change tracks based on what was more interesting to you. Obviously, everyone's going to be more successful chasing down things that they're interested in rather than trying to force yourself into a role that, you thought you might like, even if you find out you don't like it. So great story. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm just going to pause for a moment and let you all know it's never too early to put in a question into our Q&A feature. We can circle back to anything that anyone has said. If you've got a question for Derek or Mark about anything they've said so far, go ahead and put those questions in. Kim is watching for those questions, and as soon as she sees one, she'll alert us that question is there, and we can always circle back. So don't be shy with your questions. Put them in anytime. All right, last but not least, Andre Jones. I would like to introduce Andre Jones. Andre is a project engineer with KPI Solutions. Welcome, Andre.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, everybody. Really excited to tell everybody, what I do, because I love what I do. My name's Andre Jones, like Cory said. I'm a project engineer for KPI, or Keeker Pulse Integration. What we do is we automate distribution centers and warehouses and order fulfillment into facilities that increase their efficiency and increase the profit that they may make. I have a long road to where I got today. So I have always been very interested in computers, robotics, technology. Out of high school, didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I did some community college general education courses. A lot of things in my life had happened, and college didn't really work out at first. I ended up getting a job at a fabrication shop, and this fabrication shop actually was involved in the parcel industry. So that would be like UPS and Amazon and FedEx. They deal with a lot of conveyor systems and things like that. So this fabrication shop was producing parts for conveyors. And once I got in there, I learned all of the machines that I had to run. I started learning about CAD, or computer aided design. We had a lot of machines there currently that were kind of run down. So me being ambitious like I am, I always wanted to try and improve on what was around me in my environment. And there were these broken machines. So I would look up on the internet, what needs to happen. So I started taking that whole processing area over, learned how to rebuild these machines. Then my boss actually left to another company, and he gave me the opportunity to come with him and start a brand new fabrication shop at another company. Because of that opportunity, I had to take training and learn about programming of robotics. We did a lot of, in metal fabrication, you have a lot of machines that will cut metal, whether it's with water or laser. We have plasma cutting machines, which is actually electricity, and with the assist of gas, it can cut through material. So I just really showed my drive for wanting to improve things and learn. I think a big key was my ability to want to learn and learn quickly and soak everything in. After we got kind of into that, we joined KPI, and they, it's a little bit more advanced than what I was doing before. So now, being a project engineer at KPI, it's a lot more on the controls side, system integration of robotics and different things like that. So.
Wow, another great story, Andre. Thank you for sharing that. And what I picked up the most on there is, not every successful career starts with a college education. Many do, many require a college education to get started, but not all. I share a similar path as you. I was not successful at college my first try. I needed to get into an industry. In my case, it was coatings, and just sort of get started. And then I started to find the parts of the business that I really enjoyed, and thankfully worked for a company that allowed me to get an education while I was going to work, and they actually reimbursed me for that. And there's a lot of companies out there like that. So I think that's important for young people to know, that if you know what you want to go after in high school, and you can set yourself on a college path that takes you there, that's fantastic. Love to hear those stories, but also want kids to understand that that if you're not sure what you want to do, you're probably in good company. There's probably a lot more folks that don't know what they want to do than do. And so, gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing those stories. I'm sure that's very encouraging to our young folks. Again, just want to remind you that Q&A bubble is open anytime. If you've got a question, I will pose a question to the group just to see if we can get things going. Or wait, Kim, I think I see you're muted, Kim, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, I was. I am back here now. Okay, so does and this is to everybody, does your company offer college reimbursements? Derek, you want to start?
Yeah, we do not offer college reimbursement, but for some of the different certifications and things that we have in our business, for instance, we do our in-house service work on our vehicles, body work. Those come with certificates. We reimburse for automotive certificates, your ASEs. Another example would be in human resource. We have the SHRM test. That's the kind of the professional certification for human resources. And we reimburse for that. So not for college reimbursement, but for some of those pricey certification tests we do.
Sure. Mark, how about you?
Yes, MoDOT does pay for additional education. It needs to be in the field that we offer, which we offer a lot of variety, such a large company, a lot of engineering positions, but we also have environmental scientists, geologists, human resources. So there's a large variety that we do offer, but it is an option and a good benefit at MoDOT that does reimburse. So you could start out at the entry level and get reimbursed and get your degree while working here.
Mhm. Great.
So actually, that's a really good question. I don't exactly know the answer to that, but I will look into it. And if whoever asked the question wants to email me at Andre, ANDRE.Jones, JONES at KPI Solutions, I'll get that information and I can relay it. Yep.
Great. That sounds great. I do have some other questions here. So for Derek, what stands out to you most as a recruiter of talent?
I would say that it's the person. You know, we have so many different competencies we look for, like any recruiters going through a hiring process. But finding that person that maybe they're not looking maybe on the customer service side. Even though we have a lot of customer service positions, maybe they want to go in a different direction. We have opportunities there. So I love having conversations with people that I'm speaking with. One thing I think that does really stick out would be work ethic. I think, and that's not just always showing up, to work every day. I think a big part of it is, asking questions, trying to better yourself in your role, because I think I can speak for a lot of us. We didn't know what we were doing our first day, of the job. And it's about asking questions and be humble, to ask those questions. Don't feel like you got to figure it out on your own. You got people and mentors that have been in your shoes as well. So, definitely overcoming those tough days that everyone's going to have in work. I think that's something that I would look for, and that stands out is that work ethic, and definitely showing your drive that you're wanting to better yourself in the position.
Sure. And for Andre, what would you recommend for a student in high school who is interested in using robotics to help others?
So for me in particular, I was fortunate enough to have on-the-job training for certification of robotic programming. But I do know that there are some high schools that have certain courses on robotics. There are technical institutes right outside of high school or in your second, half of high school that you could get into. And another thing that I want to really stress is that YouTube and Google are your friends in most cases. So if there's anything that you want to know about, do some research on your own. Once you do the research and you learn about something, you show drive to an employer that may, use robotics. If you're able to, explain what you know and tell them you have experience and research of this, that could get you in the door too.
Great.
Now, Andre, I know I'm not sure if you're officed in Kansas City, or I know your organization has far-reaching roots in various communities, but Kim might have something to say also. Her organization, KC Tech Academy, would have resources for kids who are looking to get some sort of robotics knowledge before starting a career also.
Yeah, we have a program for juniors and seniors that teaches really what we like to think of as a maintenance tech pathway. So it's one of those jack of all trades, but master of none, just to give students a feel of all the different areas and different pathways in manufacturing. So And a lot of that we know is the automation and robotics, PLCs, but really just trying to help them understand what areas that they like better to help start that pathway for them. So
That's perfect. All right.
Mark,
Good.
yep, some more questions here.
Good.
Is there any age restrictions to work for MoDOT?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe it's 18. We hire a lot of maintenance staff throughout the state, and that's usually an entry-level position. What we require for that is that you go through a drug test, and then we will actually train you to get your CDL. CDL is a commercial driver's license, and it operates our big yellow trucks, if you will, for snowplow and for maintenance of the roadways. But I believe that if you're 18, that you can start working for MoDOT.
All right.
Fantastic. You know, Mark, earlier we had some students asking about CDLs. I know right now in the United States trucking industry, we're about 2 million drivers short of where we need to be. Is that affecting MoDOT? Are you looking for CDL drivers? And have you heard anything about them possibly reducing the age requirement to get a CDL?
I don't know much about the requirements or any reductions in age, but I can tell you we are in great need of folks with CDLs and even those without willing to get them. Right now we have 51 positions open just in the Kansas City area. So we have a huge need, and statewide, I believe we have 600 positions in our maintenance division to be filled this year right now to help us with our duties and snowplow and maintenance. So, and like I said, you don't have to have a CDL when you come in. You can come in at a higher level if you do, but we do train to get you your CDL.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Kim, do you have more questions?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not.
I will toss one out for conversation's sake, just to keep things flowing here then. So the title of this session is Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics. Would any of you three panelists like to take a stab at giving us your definition for each one of those words? What makes them similar and what makes them different?
So I'll go ahead and answer in my perspective. So distribution is really the ability to distribute product to consumers efficiently. Then we have transportation, and that's how you get from distribution out to the customer or various other sites. And then logistics is more of how the distribution process really works, and how you can, I guess, integrate things and make them more efficient. You know?
Very good. Andre, would you agree that transportation is more just about trucks and ships, moving quantities of goods from point A to point B? And distribution is warehousing those items and keeping track of the inventory in those warehouses, keeping the levels of inventory at levels that will service customers quickly. And logistics is sort of the technology that goes into doing all of those things as efficiently as possible. So it's a lot of software, it's a lot of algorithm, it's a lot of robotics that aid in both getting trucks and ships where they need to be, as well as managing inventory at the proper levels and helping us make all those big decisions.
Yeah, I think you got it right there.
And I used the analogy earlier this morning too, that you're hearing a lot about global supply chain in the news these days. I think everyone's hearing about the issues in global supply chain. What does global supply chain mean? I think global supply chain is just all of the companies in the world who are trying to do transportation, distribution, and logistics simultaneously to try to deliver goods to customers at the right time. And that's what global supply chain really means. So does anyone want to take a stab? I'm sure you're experiencing some difficulties with global supply chain right now. And could you talk about how it's affecting your individual business?
Cory, I could take that. What at Enterprise Holdings? So, we are in the car rental side, and that's a big chunk of our business with National, Alamo, and Enterprise. I'm sure no one's a stranger to the shortage of global chips that power everything technology. And, cars are one of the last to get those. And, just with the pandemic, the holdup on assembly lines, things being manufactured, that's really created quite the mess that we're all in now. So now with not having those chips to be able to power those navigation, those dashboards that we have on the vehicles now that are basically ran on that computer chip, we have the lack of the vehicles that we once were purchasing and do not have that ability to purchase those because they just don't exist right now. So that's been a thing that is ongoing with the car industry right now. You may see that in dealerships as you drive by. You don't see near the vehicles that you have, typically. So that's those are some things that we were dealing with that have had affected us because of not the pandemic, but this global chip shortage.
Thank you, Derek. And we're just kind of filling up time. Love to hear some more questions from folks. If you have any about anything we are talking about or have talked about, please feel free to put those into the Q&A feature for us. Mark or Andre, did either one of you have impact from global supply chain that you could talk about?
I could talk a little bit about some things that you probably don't even think about, but we've had a few issues with, we have glass beads that go in our striping. So on the roadway stripes, the yellow and white stripes, you don't think about it, but we have a glass beads go in there to provide some reflectivity back to the user, to the headlights. Since we weren't able to get those glass beads, we weren't able to stripe as much roadway this year as we normally do. So it's little things like that that can affect that people that won't even think about. This is the small stuff that can affect big things. And then so you could potentially have more accidents. You could have more significant issues because of that. Another thing we were having trouble with is extruded aluminum that makes our signs. We were having trouble getting that. So we weren't able to update some of our signs, and some of our contractors weren't able to finish out projects because they can't get that material. What we call green steel, which is epoxy coated steel that goes in our bridges, was also another issue of folks being able to get enough of that to finish out projects. So you can imagine if you stop building a bridge because you don't have the supply, then commuters that are having to detour around or to have a limited capacity on the roadways, it affects them as well. So it affects your commute every day. It affects logistics of companies getting their goods and services to the proper location in the right amount of time. You may be sitting on the road backed up because of that. So it has long-reaching effects.
It really does, and I'll piggyback on that, Mark, if it's okay. Potentially one of the reasons you're having trouble getting epoxy coated green steel is because epoxy has been hard to get a hold of as well. So this is just another example of the links in the supply chain and how they're all connected, how one link affects everything downstream from that. Chemical manufacturing has been difficult in the United States ever since February, when we had a really cold weather snap in Texas that shut down some refineries for about a 2-month period of time. It exhausted most of the supply and the chemical inventories across the nation, across the world. So we as a coatings company have had a hard time keeping up with demand for things like liquid epoxy resin that we use to turn into finished goods that we would sell to a steel company that would coat signs to sell to Mark's company to install on the road. So there's a long supply chain there that's all interconnected, which could be leaving, as Mark said, either some lack of maintenance items that need to be performed or inability to finish up projects, Missouri Department of Transportation.
Yeah, I was at a manufacturer just the other day that was running out of space because of one little part that they could not get due to the supply chain. And so they're having to store all of their equipment that would typically be shipped out already in their facility until that comes in. And they really were running out of space and not sure what they were going to do about that. We do have another question here. Great. For everybody. How are you dealing with COVID and how has it affected your business?
I'll go ahead and go. We definitely have been affected by COVID. A lot of it is there are a lot of ramping up on what we do because of COVID. There are a lot of employees that aren't able to get to work, and then there are companies suffering because of that. While there's a labor shortage, there is not a shortage in the demand for goods. So the shortage of labor causes distribution centers not to be able to get orders out. And that's where we come in with the robots, which going back to the previous question, with the supply chain issues, we definitely have been having supply chain issues with chips for, what we call AMRs, or autonomous mobile robots. That's just an example of something I recently dealt with. We have facilities that were supposed to be running live on certain dates, and that's not going to happen because there's a chip shortage. So actually, COVID really is helping what we do, but it's definitely affecting us.
Mm-hmm. Derek, how about you?
Yeah, we definitely, like many, once this all went down early 20, we had kind of figure out what was going on. And we were blessed to be essential still and stay afloat. We're owned by the same family that's been behind the business the last 60 plus years at Enterprise. So, kind of having that privately backed was very helpful. And, we, certainly lost customers coming in. I mean, we weren't traveling at all, but we were helping with, those that were, setting up, hospitals around the areas to help the overflow of those that have been sick. So, helping with that. And, we were seeing that business, and then all of a sudden, when travel bans were opened up, the demand was back. However, going back to that shortage on chips and, just vehicles being produced in the last year created quite a problem here, because we wanted to service all the customers we could, but we just couldn't. We just didn't have the vehicles. So we sold out a lot more often than we did as a rental company. But also trying to do new things, extending the lives of the vehicles that we have in the rental side, buying more and helping globally as a company. We're all helping wherever the demand is, moving vehicles to the Midwest. If the Midwest had a huge spike versus the West Coast, or vice versa. So it really brought out some creativity here this last year. And, not to mention us being a customer facing business in the rental side of it, we wanted to make sure our employees were, properly, safe with proper PPE and whatnot. So yeah, certainly COVID has done a number on things, but like many and all of us, I think we're trying to overcome that.
Mark, I'll let you answer that as well. And I do have a couple of other questions for you too. One is related to, does MoDOT use drones? And then also maybe each of you talk a little bit about, if we have the time, about, does your companies offer internships?
Sure. So how COVID affected us, like many, we had to adapt. Work from home for a while, back in the office since May. But even in the office, we're wearing masks and doing COVID protocols. Where it really affected us was when we had more than one person per vehicle. It was very difficult early on to do our work, because we can have up to 4 people in a truck sometimes to be able to get a job done. So it affected many different things. Of course, affected our supply chain issues and things like projects done. But like most people and most companies, we adapted and got creative on how to approach that. So there's some good things that have come out of it. These type of conferences and meetings have saved us time, and we realize that we can do that. So there are some positive things that have come out of it. That's, COVID is affecting us like it did many companies, in all aspects, from the personnel side, being able to have to restrict people into meetings and things like that, to just supply chain issues. When it comes to the other questions, yes, we do have internships. We have internships every summer. We do a lot of engineering internships. We do human resources. We do communications. There could be others. Our website would have some of that information on there if you're interested to take a look at that. They're regional, like we have the Kansas City area, the St. Joe area, St. Louis. We are regional in our internships. Our bridge division's out of Jeff City. So if you are wanting to be a bridge engineer and have an engineering internship, you probably have to spend time down there. Kim, remind me of the last question. I've already forgot it.
The drones. Does MoDOT use drones?
We do to some degree. There's the drones for taking pictures and stuff that a little bit happens, but where drone usage has probably become more prevalent is with our consultants. We hire engineering consultants and survey consultants to do surveys of our roadways to find essentially exact points of reference on the roadway, whether it's the edge of roadway and property corners and things like that. And there are companies out there that we hire to fly, say, a roadway and pick up all that aerial footage, and they use radar and LiDAR to be able to do that. So you're essentially finding those exact points. Those drones are very expensive. I spoke with a surveyor just a couple weeks ago, and $300,000 drone that they were flying to do the mapping. So yes, we do have starting to see more and more of that.
Wow. And if either of you want to talk about internships, we do have one other question I'll throw out there. How do you think the economy will be affected over the next year or so by all the shortages?
Just have about 2 minutes left, guys. So somebody want to take a swing at that?
So I don't know exactly how it will be affected, but I can tell you that from certain things that I have heard, that we will actually be feeling the effects of the shortages before a year from now. And I'm pretty sure pretty heavily. It will be, I've heard it will be hard to get Christmas presents.
I've heard that too. Order now.
Just real quick on internships, Enterprise does have a few of them. We have an automotive technician that's at our airport location that we have. And then we also have sales and customer service internships through really, I guess if you're a college student, through the fall, spring semesters, and we also have a summer internship as well. But we do have positions too that you used to be 18. I think we were talking about earlier that now we've dropped the age down to 17 with some of the positions there. So, but yeah, we do definitely have a lot of good internship opportunity.
Perfect. Well, it's time to wrap up. I will say this about the economy very quickly. Get ready for rising prices. We talked about this total supply chain. So let me just give you a quick example. Epoxy resin, I said, was short, and we were having trouble getting it. We are paying 5 times the cost for epoxy resin that we were paying in February this year. Epoxy resin has gone up 500%. So guess what? We're charging more for our product next year, which means the people that are buying the green paint to put on steel signs are going to charge more to Mark next year. So whenever Mark has to purchase those, you see how the links all line up, and prices just, those price increases just get passed on from one link to the other. Those are going to continue to find their way into the economy over the next year for sure. Guys, thank you very much for all of your comments, your insights. Thank you very much for sharing your stories. Audience, we hope that's encouraging to you. to know that there's a variety of options for your career, and that, if we had to say one thing, it doesn't matter so much where you get started, just get started and find then the places where you enjoy, and then go after those with your heart and soul. Really put yourself into your work, and there's a world of opportunity out there for you. Kim, thank you very much for helping moderate things. I am going to wrap up by just saying that we hope you enjoyed hearing about the opportunities that exist. Please be sure to take the survey that's going to pop up on your screen when you close out the session. We really value the input from that survey. It helps us continue to make better and better programs for you. To find more information on educational programs and career opportunities related to the industries we talked about today, please visit www.nebaworkskc.org. That's nebaworkskc.org. And you can go on that website to register for more career series, speaker events, and that is it. We hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care.